Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the Raising Cane's River Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, while Rampage was taped from the Cable Dahmer Arena in Independence, Missouri. And Smackdown tonight, I gotta say, Smackdown was surprisingly an okay show tonight. It wasn't terrible as it always is, but shocking that it was an okay show tonight. And then next week we'll be back to another shit show with Smackdown. Watch. But okay show for Smackdown tonight. We had qualifying matches for Money in the Bank. We had Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre. We had Lacey Evans versus Xia Li. So those were the two Money in the Bank qualifying matches that were seen on SmackDown tonight. We had Ronda Rousey taking on Shotzi. The Intercontinental Championship was on the line, where Ricochet defended the title against Gunther. And in the main event, we had Riddle versus Sami Zayn. Now, if Sami Zayn won the match, Riddle is banned from SmackDown. But if Riddle won, Riddle would get a shot against the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, which will take place next week on SmackDown. But overall, SmackDown, okay show tonight. But if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, did a DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K update. So definitely check out my video of that. But anyways, let's jump right in to the SmackDown review. SmackDown opened up tonight with Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. Money in the Bank qualifying match. We had Drew McIntyre's music end up hidden, and we went backstage. McIntyre was shown making his way through gorilla position, and McIntyre bumped into Butch, Pete Dunne. So McIntyre and Butch end up having a stare down, and McIntyre end up going out for his entrance. Of course, he had his sword Angela in hand, so he made his way into the ring. Sheamus then ended up making his way out. Sheamus came out along with, of course, Butch. Ridge Holland wasn't there tonight, to which Michael Cole on commentary ended up saying that Ridge Holland suffered a knee injury last week, and that Ridge Holland is on the mend. So Ridge Holland suffered a knee injury last week. So the match ended up getting underway, which this was a very good match here. So McIntyre ended up backing Sheamus into the corner. Sheamus started firing away with some punches to Drew McIntyre's gut. McIntyre ended up turning things around, started punching Sheamus. So they were trading more shots back and forth. McIntyre ended up charging out of the corner with a clothesline, which knocked down Sheamus. McIntyre ended up lining up Sheamus to deliver a chop in the center of the ring. Sheamus ended up responding with a shoulder block. He ended up knocking McIntyre down, but then McIntyre ended up delivering the Michinoku driver to Sheamus. Ended up going for the cover. Sheamus kicked out at 2. McIntyre delivered another chop to Sheamus, but Sheamus ended up sending Drew McIntyre out to the ring apron. Started pounding away with some forearm strikes over the top rope. McIntyre then ended up cutting off Sheamus, and he turned a 10 beats of the Bodhrán. So we had McIntyre end up pulling Sheamus out to the apron. Butch got up on the apron to distract McIntyre, to which Sheamus ended up pushing McIntyre into the ring post. Sheamus lifted up McIntyre, dropped McIntyre with the white noise on the ring apron. So as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sheamus was in control of the match still. McIntyre ended up quickly fighting out of Sheamus in control of the match, and McIntyre ended up running into an Alabama slam by Sheamus, and Sheamus ended up going for the cover, to which McIntyre kicked out at 2. So we had Sheamus later on. He climbed up to the top rope. McIntyre ended up cutting him off. Both guys started trading strikes, and McIntyre ended up climbing up with Sheamus. McIntyre ended up lifting Sheamus onto his shoulders, and McIntyre delivered his own white noise to Sheamus from the second turnbuckle, which that was a good spot there. McIntyre, doing Sheamus's move, the white noise. So McIntyre ended up going for the cover. Sheamus kicked out at 2. McIntyre ended up lining up for the Claymore to Sheamus. So he ended up counting down. McIntyre ended up counting down to deliver the Claymore. Sheamus ended up hitting a jumping knee strike to McIntyre. He ended up going for the cover, to which McIntyre kicked out at 2. So Sheamus was lining up McIntyre to it, I guess, the Brogue Kick, but McIntyre ended up catching Sheamus and delivered a powerbomb. He ended up going for the cover. Sheamus kicked out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had Sheamus ended up throwing McIntyre into the timekeeper's area, to which before that, Sheamus ended up hitting a clothesline from the top rope to McIntyre on the floor. McIntyre then ended up hitting an overhead suplex to Sheamus on the floor. So both Sheamus and McIntyre picked up chairs, and they started brawling at ringside. But the bell ended up ringing, and in typical Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard booking, the match ended in a double disqualification. So McIntyre and Sheamus were continuing to brawl at ringside, and then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, McIntyre and Sheamus were still brawling. Michael Cole in commentary ended up saying that the match was ruled a double disqualification. Butch ended up trying to jump on McIntyre's back, and he ended up getting dropped. McIntyre sent Sheamus over the barricade, and both guys ended up brawling into the crowd. Officials ended up having to come in and break the both of them up. Sheamus ended up breaking free, and he ended up still fighting McIntyre. Sheamus then ended up retreating up the stands as McIntyre was staring him down from the ring apron. And that was that. But stupid way to end the match in a double disqualification. So, who is moving on to Money in the Bank? Who is qualifying for Money in the Bank here? Drew McIntyre or Sheamus? Watch, we'll get a rematch next week. But good match, stupid way to end it with a double disqualification. I'm like, this is a Money in the Bank qualifying match. And like I said, in typical Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard booking, they do this shit. So stupid. Before we got McIntyre and Sheamus, brawling, we had a hype video for John Cena's return. He's returned to Monday Night Raw on June 27th because this year marks the 20th anniversary of John Cena's debut in WWE. So I can't believe it's been 20 years John Cena's with the company. I remember when he first debuted on SmackDown and he had his first match against Kurt Angle. And right from there, that led to him having a great career. So then we have Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. They end up showing the highlights of Seth Rollins attacking Cody Rhodes this past Monday on Raw. So Pat McAfee wished Cody Rhodes good luck in his recovery. Michael Cole then ended up informing us that Cody underwent surgery yesterday and that he will be out of action for up to 9 months. So Cody Rhodes will be out of action for 9 months. 3 months he's back with WWE, and already he's out with an injury. So it's going to be a speedy recovery for Cody Rhodes. And then we went backstage. Kayla Braxton ended up welcoming Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans, she ended up returning. She did those promos done on Smackdown, and they moved her over to Monday Night Raw. And then they moved her back to Smackdown. So WWE doesn't know what to do with Lacey Evans. Like, what was the point on having her do these promos on Smackdown only for them to move her to Monday Night Raw and then move her from Monday Night Raw back to SmackDown? It's awful. So we had Kayla Braxton end up asking Lacey Evans about her chaotic childhood. Lacey Evans end up explaining how Money in the Bank works, which we all know how Money in the Bank works. So Lacey Evans ended up saying that Xia Li looks at her like a victim. And Lacey Evans ended up saying, that's not how it is. So Lacey Evans ended up making her way out. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, she was already in the ring, waiting for Xia Li to come out. Xia Li ended up making her way out, and we had the lightning effects back, making her look like she just came out of Mortal Kombat. So Xia Li ended up cutting a promo. Xia Li ended up saying that Lacey Evans is a whiner, and that she's going to make Lacey Evans cry. So we had the match, Lacey Evans versus Xia Li, Money in the Bank qualifying match. This was Lacey Evans' first match since February of last year, to which after that, she ended up going on and having another child. So this match was just pretty much meh, in my opinion. Xia Li ended up grabbing a waistlock, ended up switching to a headlock on Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans ended up hitting a shoulder tackle to take down Xia Li. Xia Li came back, started delivering some kicks to Lacey Evans and backed Evans into the corner. And so Xia Li ended up going for the cover. Evans ended up kicking out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had Xia Li hitting a kick to Lacey Evans, and then she ended up running right into the woman's right by Lacey Evans. So Lacey ended up getting the pin. So there you go. Lacey Evans ended up winning the match. Lacey Evans now qualifies for the women's Money in the Bank. So but overall, just a very meh match. And then we saw Adam Pearce backstage. Adam Pearce ended up getting a visit from Drew McIntyre. So Drew McIntyre ended up saying to Pearce that he wants to be put into the Money in the Bank match. To which Adam Pearce ended up telling McIntyre that he can't just do that. So McIntyre ended up insisting Pearce to think it over. So there you go. That was what happened, with Adam Pearce and Drew McIntyre. And then Ronda Rousey ended up making her way out. So Michael Cole and Pat McAfee end up showing us highlights from the 6-pack challenge last week, where Natalya ended up winning the 6-pack challenge, and then she will get a shot at Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. Yeah, sounds like a good match. That's going to be at Money in the Bank with Natalya and Ronda Rousey. Please hand me a pillow. Hand me a pillow when that match comes on. That's going to be a boring match there at Money in the Bank. So when SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had a video hyping up the Viking Raiders where it featured Eric and Ivar. They were throwing some objects, and it said that they're coming soon. Why did WWE do a coming soon video for the Viking Raiders when they were on SmackDown? And then they were on NXT, for a little bit. And now they're doing, the Viking Raiders are coming as soon as SmackDown, when they were on SmackDown. What the fuck? Unbelievable. They were on SmackDown. And they did a whole, the Viking Raiders are coming soon. Yeah, it's like WWE wants us to forget that the Viking Raiders were a part of the SmackDown roster. Awful. Absolutely awful. So then after that, we went back to Adam Pearce's office. Sheamus and Butch end up barging into Pearce's office. Sheamus ended up yelling at Adam Pearce saying that he wants results. And pretty much that was that. So it looks like we're going to get a rematch next week for Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. And we're going to have, the Money in the Bank qualifying match. So why book the match in a double disqualification? Vince, Bruce. It makes no sense to have the match tonight end it in a double disqualification only to get a rematch possibly for next week's SmackDown. So then we saw Ronda Rousey. She was in the ring. Ronda Rousey ended up getting on the mic. She ended up saying that she can't wait to show Natalya that her armbar is far superior to the cheap imitation of the sharpshooter that Natalya pilfered from her Uncle Brett. So then Shotzi ended up coming out. Shotzi ended up telling Ronda to shut up. Shotzi ended up saying that she may not be a great in-ring technician, but she has serious aggression and a killer instinct. So Shotzi tried to talk herself into having a match against Ronda Rousey right now. So Rousey ended up asking Baton Rouge, if they want to see the match. And Ronda ended up saying, it's on. So we had the match, but this whole segment was awful. Just absolute cringe. Shotzi coming out there saying, Ronda, shut up. It was so cringe. So then, as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi, a championship contenders match, or as I would call it, championship laziness match, because championship contenders matches are just WWE creative ways of being lazy. These championship contenders matches need to fucking die. It is pure laziness on WWE creative. But this was a decent match here. And they actually gave Shotzi some TV time here. So Shotzi ended up getting a few shots in on Ronda against the ropes. Ronda ended up rolling up Shotzi, and Shotzi ended up kicking out too. Shotzi ended up coming back to her feet and took down Ronda with a snapmare. But Shotzi ended up running right into a power slam by Ronda. She ended up going for the cover, to which Shotzi kicked out at 2. Shotzi ended up blocking a charge to the corner by Ronda. And Shotzi ended up putting Ronda in a triangle choke over the top rope. Ronda reversed that into an ankle lock over the top rope. But she had to break the hold because Shotzi ended up getting to the rope. Shotzi ended up trying to get back into the ring, but Ronda ended up grabbing her ankle. Shotzi ended up kicking Ronda away and hit a tornado DDT onto the floor. So Shotzi ended up getting Ronda back into the ring, ended up going for the cover. Ronda kicked out at 2. Shotzi was sent up for a suplex, and Ronda ended up blocking it. Ronda ended up grabbing a waistlock on Shotzi. Shotzi grabbed the ropes to escape out of the waistlock, and she ended up hitting a high kick to Ronda's head. And she ended up going for the cover, to which Ronda kicked out at 2. Shotzi ended up hitting a vertical suplex to Ronda. She ended up going for the cover. Ronda kicked out at 2. Shotzi ended up hitting Ronda with a vertical suplex into the corner, started stomping away on her. Ronda ended up poisoning up Shotzi. Shotzi ended up escaping and hit another kick and a knee strike and a forearm to Ronda. So at the end of the match, Ronda ended up powering Shotzi up. She delivered the Piper's Pit. And then Ronda locked in the armbar. Shotzi ended up tapping out. So there you go. Ronda Rousey ended up winning the match. Post-match, Natalya came into the ring and attacked Ronda. And Natalya locked in the sharpshooter on Ronda. Referees end up coming out to try to get Natalya to break the sharpshooter off of Ronda. And she ended up relinquishing the sharpshooter off of her. And pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was a decent match between Ronda and Shotzi. I like that WWE gave Shotzi some TV time here in the match. But obviously, very predictable that Ronda was going to win. You know, WWE burying Shotzi even more. Shotzi's going to be the next name on the next set of WWE releases. Watch. And then we had Megan Moran. Megan Moran was backstage. She was interviewing Riddle. Riddle ended up telling Megan Moran that he thrives under pressure and that he's motivated by what the Bloodline did to Randy Orton. So that was what Riddle had to say. And then we went to Ludwig Kaiser. He ended up introducing Gunther, and Gunther got a new entrance theme, which sounds awful. So Gunther, once again, got a new entrance theme for no reason. So then, as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had Kayla Braxton backstage. She ended up informing us that this is a serious injury for Ronda. And Ronda was lying on a trainer's table, and she was refusing a bag of ice. So we ended up seeing that. And then we had Ricochet end up making his way out. So then we had the match, Gunther versus Ricochet, Intercontinental Championship on the line. I can't remember the last time the Intercontinental Championship was on the line. But the match started off with Gunther overpowering over Ricochet. Ricochet ended up trying to do some kicks and chops to Gunther, but it didn't do anything for Gunther. Gunther shrugged off a head scissor attempt and laid a big chop to Ricochet. Gunther ended up laying Ricochet across the top rope and delivered another chop, to which the first chop that Gunther did to Ricochet was loud and it echoed through the arena. So Gunther ended up climbing up. He stretched Ricochet across the top rope, to which Ricochet spilled outside the ring. And as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Gunther ended up delivering a big boot to Ricochet. Gunther ended up going for a powerbomb to Ricochet, and Ricochet ended up reversing that into a sunset flip on Gunther, to which Gunther kicked out at 2. Ricochet ended up kicking Gunther's legs and ended up dropping Gunther to one knee. So Ricochet was hitting some more kicks and a head scissors to Gunther, And with the head scissors, Ricochet ended up sending Gunther into the corner. Ricochet ended up hitting the shoulder into the corner. He springboarded right into a sleeper hold delivered by Gunther. Gunther ended up trying to go for a German suplex, but Ricochet flipped out of that. Ricochet ended up running right into a lariat by Gunther. And so Gunther went for the cover. Ricochet kicked out at 2. So we had Ricochet end up kicking away at Ludwig Kaiser. And Ricochet then delivered a springboard moonsault and a stand shooting star press onto Gunther. Ricochet went for the cover, and Gunther kicked out at 2. Ricochet went back up to the top rope. Gunther avoided the 450 splash, so Ricochet ended up landing on his feet. Ricochet ended up hitting a drop kick, and Gunther ended up kicking Ricochet. Gunther ended up planting Ricochet with a powerbomb, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Gunther ended up winning the match, and he is the new Intercontinental Champion. Obviously predictable. Even when this match was announced last week, I'm like, all right, Gunther is going to be the new Intercontinental Champion. But my question is, who is going to face Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship? Who's it going to be? But there was a report that came out saying that WWE is impressed with Gunther. And Gunther has impressed people of influence backstage by him moving here to the U.S. and, his diet and training. So WWE is very impressed with Gunther. So I guess that's why they crowned him and gave him the Intercontinental Championship. Overall, this was a good match between Gunther and Ricochet. Like I said, who was going to face Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship? And then we had Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was backstage. Paul Heyman ended up walking up to Sami Zayn. Paul Heyman ended up saying that this is the greatest opportunity of Sami Zayn's career. And that if he wins, he can go to the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, and try to get him a spot in the bloodline. But Paul Heyman ended up saying that if Sami Zayn loses, so Sami Zayn ended up making his way out. So then SmackDown went to commercial. And then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had a classic SmackDown moment, which was the Stone Cold Steve Austin, Booker T supermarket brawl in December of 2001. Classic moment. We had Stone Cold going at the end, price check on jackass. Just absolutely a classic moment. One of my favorite SmackDown moments. Just Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T having that brawl in the supermarket. And then we saw Sami Zayn. He was waiting in the ring. So we had Riddle end up coming out. And then SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, they announced that we're going to have Corbin and Moss again next week. It's going to be a last laugh match. Please, I hope this is the last match that we see of Moss and Corbin. I don't want to see another match with these two. I really don't. And then they announced that Max Dupree could not present his first client this week due to travel issues. And that now we're going to be seeing who Max Dupree's first client is next week. So we're going to be seeing those next week on SmackDown. So then we had the match, Riddle versus Sami Zayn, Paul Heyman was on commentary during the match. This was the main event. So, like they said earlier, if Sami Zayn end up win the match, then Riddle is banned from SmackDown. But if Riddle won the match, he gets a shot at Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. And this was a good match. This was a very good match. Riddle ended up getting some kicks in on Sami Zayn. He ended up locking on a head and arm triangle on Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn got to the ropes to break up the hold. Both Riddle and Sami Zayn end up spilling to the outside. Riddle ended up driving Sami Zayn into the ring apron, started kicking away at him. Sami Zayn then rolled into the ring. Riddle followed back into the ring, started hitting some gut-wrench suplexes to Sami Zayn. Riddle ended up going for the cover, to which Zayn kicked out at 2. Riddle started chopping away at Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn ended up reversing the whip and retreated outside the ring. And he ended up getting a shot in on Riddle, and he ended up rolling Riddle back into the ring. He ended up going for the cover. Riddle kicked out at 2. Sami Zayn ended up putting Riddle in a chin lock, so Riddle ended up throwing him off, ended up hitting a overhead kick. Riddle then followed it up with a running forearm and a T-bone suplex to Sami Zayn, and he delivered a running knee strike. Riddle went for the cover, to which Zayn kicked out at 2. Riddle then ended up climbing up to the top rope. Sami Zayn ended up pushing him off. Riddle ended up crashing into the barricade. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sami Zayn was in control of the match. He was stomping away on Riddle against the ropes. Zayn ended up climbing up to the second rope, and he ended up hitting a brainbuster to Riddle. So he ended up going for the cover. Riddle kicked out 2. So Sami Zayn ended up throwing Riddle out of the ring to the floor, and Zayn ended up running Riddle into the ring post. Sami Zayn ended up rolling back into the ring, and while Riddle was still on the outside, the referee ended up getting the count. The referee ended up counting to 9, and Riddle ended up managing to beat the count. So we had Riddle end up run up to meet Sami Zayn. He was looking to go for the super RKO. Sami Zayn ended up punching Riddle off. Zayn ended up diving from the top. He ended up eating a knee strike from Riddle. He ended up going for the cover, to which Zayn kicked out at 2. Sami Zayn ended up hitting Randy Orton's draping DDT on Riddle. He ended up calling for the RKO. And Paul Heyman was screaming on commentary for Sami Zayn to cover Riddle. So Riddle ended up hitting the final flash knee strike to cut off Sami Zayn. He ended up firing up with a ton of kicks in the corner to Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn ended up slipping to the outside of the ring, out to the floor. Riddle ended up hitting the floating bro to the floor on Sami Zayn. So both guys went back into the ring. Riddle ended up hitting a power slam on Sami Zayn. He followed up with a draping DDT. And Riddle was setting up for the RKO. Zayn reversed that into the Blue Thunder Bomb. He ended up going for the cover, to which Riddle kicked out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had Riddle end up poisoning up Sami Zayn for the Bro Derek. Sami Zayn ended up reversing that into a roll-up, to which Riddle kicked out at 2. Zayn ended up hitting the Exploder Suplex in the corner on Riddle, and he was lined up to deliver the Haluva kick, but Sami Zayn ended up running right into the RKO by Riddle. Riddle ended up going for the pin, and there you go. Riddle ended up winning the match. So next week on SmackDown, Riddle will face the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. But why are we getting this at Money in the Bank? Because obviously Roman is missing Money in the Bank. So Roman missed Backlash, he missed Hell in a Cell, and now he's missing Money in the Bank. So we won't get Roman in a match until SummerSlam, possibly with the title on the line. Because obviously next week Roman is going to retain the title. So post-match, Jimmy and Jay, the Usos end up attacking Riddle. The Usos end up posing, and Matt Riddle end up delivering kendo stick shots to both Jimmy and Jay. So with the kendo stick shots, Riddle ended up sending the Usos into retreat. And that was how SmackDown went off the air tonight. Overall, good match between Riddle and Sami Zayn. We're going to be seeing Riddle versus Roman Reigns next week on SmackDown for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. To which obviously Riddle's going to lose and Roman is going to retain. So SmackDown, okay show tonight. Wasn't terrible as it always is. But okay SmackDown tonight. Moving on to AEW Rampage, which Rampage was a good show tonight. We had Eddie Kingston versus Jake Hager. Eddie Kingston ended up putting out the challenge on Dynamite this past Wednesday because Jake Hager ended up eliminating Eddie Kingston from the Battle Royal on Dynamite Wednesday. We had Jay Lethal and the in-ring debut of Satnam Singh, the Walmart Great Value version of the Great Khali. So they end up taking on Davey, Vega, and Matt Fitchett. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. We had Chris Statlander versus Red Velvet. And in the main event, we had a trios match, Trent Beretta and FTR versus Will Osprey, Aussie Open, and Kyle Fletcher of the United Empire. So, Rampage, good show tonight. So Rampage opened up with Eddie Kingston versus Jake Hager. Good match this was. Both Kingston and Hager here went to war with each other. And this all came about because Jake Hager ended up eliminating Eddie Kingston out of the Battle Royal on Dynamite on Wednesday. And then Eddie Kingston ended up cutting a promo saying that he wants Jake Hager on Rampage, to which we got the match tonight. So the match started off with Kingston and Hager. They were throwing punches at each other. Hager ended up getting the best of Eddie Kingston. He ended up laying out Kingston with some clotheslines. Hager started punching away as Kingston was down on his knees. Hager ended up throwing Kingston out of the ring out to the floor. Kingston ended up meeting Jake Hager with some chops. Hager ended up going low with a knee to Eddie Kingston's gut to retake control of the match. Hager then ended up slamming Eddie Kingston's head into the ring apron as both guys went back into the ring. Hager ended up hitting a backdrop suplex and started grounding Eddie Kingston with a double underhook from behind. He then ended up throwing Eddie Kingston out of the ring again and followed it out and suplexed Eddie Kingston on the floor. Kingston ended up trying to fight back, and Hager ended up kicking Kingston down, rolling back into the ring. So Hager ended up pounding on Eddie Kingston's lower back in the corner. Kingston ended up firing up with some chops. Hager cut him off with a belly-belly suplex. So Hager ended up trying to get a cover on Kingston, but Kingston immediately kicked out. So then we saw Eddie Kingston was on his knees. He ended up flipping off Jake Hager, delivered the middle finger to Jake Hager. Hager ended up responding with some punches. Kingston ended up raking Jake Hager's eyes and ended up hitting the DDT. He ended up going for the cover, to which Hager kicked out at 2. So Kingston was firing away with some chops to Hager. So we had Kingston up trying to go for an explosive suplex. Hager blocked it and hit the Vader bomb. And he ended up going for the cover, to which Kingston kicked out at 2. Hager ended up trying to go for the ankle lock, and Kingston ended up fighting him off. Hager tried to get a Gunther suplex. Kingston blocked it and hit a explosive suplex and a Sayato suplex on Hager. He ended up going for the cover, and Hager kicked out at 2. So at the end of the match, Hager ended up backing Eddie Kingston into the corner, started punching away at him. Kingston ended up carrying Hager out for a powerbomb. Kingston then ended up hitting a pair of spinning back fists, and with the last back fist, Hager went down to the mat, and Kingston ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Eddie Kingston ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a very good match. Both these guys went to war here, and it was a very physical match. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was backstage with Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Jamie Hayter, and Rebel. So Britt Baker ended up telling Tony Schiavone that she still has the belt that she got for winning the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament. Britt Baker ended up saying that she was not happy to see Toni Storm put her hands on the AEW Women's Champion, Thunder Rosa, on Dynamite. Britt Baker ended up saying that she thinks Toni Storm is trying to cut the line. And Britt Baker ended up saying that Team DMD will win the title before Toni Storm does. So pretty much that was basically what Britt Baker had to say. But good promo from Britt Baker here. Just talking crap on Toni Storm. And then we got a hype video for the hair versus hair match between Jericho and Ortiz, which is going to be seen this Wednesday on Dynamite, Road Rager. It's going to be very weird to see Chris Jericho getting his head shaved and being bald. And then we had Jay Lethal and Satnam Singh versus Davey Vega and Matt Fitchett. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. This was a waste of time. This match sucked. So this was Satnam Singh's in-ring debut. Jay Lethal started out the match, but tagged in Satnam. Satnam ended up stunning Matt Fitchett with a knee lift. He ended up followed up with a chop in the corner. He ended up going for a suplex, and Vega ended up running to try to stop Satnam. So Satnam ended up taking down both men, ended up taking out both Vega and Fitchett. Satnam ended up tagging in Jay Lethal, and he ended up going for the double lethal injection. And there you go. Jay Lethal and Satnam Singh end up winning the match. Post-match, Jay Lethal, Satnam, and Sanjay Dutt end up beating down both Vega and Fitchett. Satnam ended up hitting Fitchett with a spinning crucifix bomb, and that was basically that. So, Satnam Singh, obviously, he only hit those moves in the ring, and just, he's the Great Value version of the Great Khali. He's Great Khali 3.0. Man, if Satnam Singh keeps doing the moves that we saw in the match tonight, where it's the chop and the clothesline and the spinning crucifix bomb in another match that he has, then he's just going to be a waste. Satnam Singh will be a waste on television. He's already, in my opinion, Great Khali 3.0. I say he's the Walmart Great Value version of the Great Khali. But what a waste of time this match was. Match fucking sucked. And then we saw Lexi Nair. Lexi Nair ended up interviewing Danhausen and Hook. Danhausen ended up rolling up in the golf cart to greet Lexi Nair. Hook ended up following up in a ATV. He ended up dropping the shades at Lexi Nair and just rode away on the ATV. And pretty much that was basically that. So Hookhausen They end up defeating Tony Nese and Mark Sterling at Double or Nothing. So it's a nice pairing with Danhausen and Hook. And then we had Red Velvet versus Kris Statlander. Red Velvet end up making her way out with Jade Cargill, Kiera Hogan, and Stokely Hathaway. And then Kris Statlander end up coming out. And this was a enjoyable match here. Red Velvet end up trying to jump Statlander before the bell end up ringing, but she ended up running right into a power slam on the floor by Statlander. Statlander ended up press slamming Red Velvet back into the ring and followed up with some running strikes. Red Velvet then retreated out to the floor as Statlander ended up being up on Red Velvet. Red Velvet ended up trying to jump on Statlander. Statlander ended up carrying Red Velvet on her back. She went up the ring steps and got on the top rope and tossed Red Velvet back into the ring. Statlander ended up going up to the top rope and she missed the crossbody. And Statlander ended up recovering to get Red Velvet up for a delayed vertical suplex. Red Velvet ended up reversing out of that, and she was able to attack Kris Statlander's knee. So as Rampage came back from the commercial, Red Velvet and Kris Statlander were trading strikes in the middle of the ring. Statlander ended up hitting a snap backbreaker, and she ended up powering Red Velvet into the corner. Statlander ended up driving her shoulder into Red Velvet and landed in some chops. So Statlander ended up carrying Red Velvet out of the corner into a spinning blue thunder bomb. She ended up going for the cover, to which Red Velvet kicked out too. So we had Statlander later on. She ended up poisoning Red Velvet onto her shoulders. Red Velvet was hanging onto the ropes, and then she ended up drop kicking Statlander into the second rope. So at the end of the match, Red Velvet ended up lining up Kris Statlander. Statlander blocked a corkscrew kick. She ended up hitting the Friday Night Fever, which this was originally known as the Big Bang Theory, but now they're calling it the Friday Night Fever. So Statlander ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Kris Statlander ended up winning the match. Post-match, Cargill and Kiera Hogan end up attacking Kris Statlander. Cargill delivered a pump kick to Statlander on the floor. Anna Jay ended up running down, and she ended up putting Kiera Hogan in the Queen Slayer. So Athena's music ended up playing. Athena ended up running down to get involved, and referees and officials ended up holding Athena back. So pretty much that was basically that, but it's going to be Athena versus Jade Cargill, TBS Championship, and Athena is going to be the one to take the TBS Championship off of Jade Cargill and end Cargill's undefeated streak. So, but overall, Kris Statlander versus Red Velvet, it was an enjoyable match. And then we had a hype video for Ethan Page and Miro. They're going to be facing off in the qualifying match for the All-Atlantic Championship. And then we saw Lexi Nair. Lexi Nair was backstage with Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, and Dan Lambert. And Ethan Page ended up saying that he believes in himself. He wants to say that he'll be waving the flag of Canada, and Miro will be praying for him next Wednesday. So it's going to be Ethan Page versus Miro in the qualifying match for the All-Atlantic Championship, which the All-Atlantic Championship looks great. It's a very nice looking belt. So, but obviously Miro is going to win the match Wednesday on Dynamite. And then we had Mark Henry. Mark Henry was chatting with Will Osprey, Aussie Open, and Kyle Fletcher and Aaron Henry. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Will Osprey end up introducing himself, Aussie Open, and Aaron Henry. Will Osprey end up saying that they're here to separate the sheep from the goats. So Trent Beretta ended up saying that he didn't like Osprey when he was starting out. And Beretta ended up saying that he still doesn't like Osprey. FTR ended up saying that they're the actual best tag team on the planet. Hell, no doubt, FTR is one of the best tag teams in pro wrestling. So, pretty much that was basically that. Just them just talking before they get into their match. And then they went over what we're going to see Wednesday on Dynamite, which is Road Rager. It's what they're calling the Dynamite show on Wednesday. So we're going to be seeing the AEW Tag Team titles on the line in a ladder match, where it's going to be the Young Bucks versus the Hardys versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. The hair versus hair match, Jericho versus Ortiz. The All-Atlantic Championship qualifying match, Ethan Page versus Miro. And Wardlow is going to face 20 security guards, which it's absolutely pointless. You know, Wardlow, he's getting the Goldberg treatment where people in the crowd are just chanting, Wardlow, Wardlow. You know, it's the Goldberg chants, but only with Wardlow. So that's what we're going to see this Wednesday on Dynamite. And then we had the main event. Will Osprey, Aussie Open, and Kyle Fletcher versus Trent Beretta and FTR. This was an amazing match here. This is the first time I've seen Will Osprey in the ring. Never seen any of his matches. But Will Osprey impressed me here in the match. I would like to see more of Will Osprey on AEW television. And Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, they did a pretty good job in the match. So Osprey ended up starting out against Dax Harwood. Osprey and Harwood ended up locking up. Osprey backed Harwood into the corner. They have started trading some chops. Dax ended up taking a Cash Wheeler. Wheeler ended up knocking down Osprey with a shoulder tackle. And Osprey ended up kipping up, which looked awesome. So we had both Osprey and Wheeler. They ended up tumbling into the ropes. Kyle Fletcher ended up tagging in. Fletcher ended up decking Cash with a strike. He ended up tagging in Mark Davis. Davis ended up throwing Cash into the corner. And Trent Beretta ended up tagging in. Later on, we saw Trent Beretta. He ended up hitting a back body drop to Will Osprey, to which Osprey looked like he was in pain. Fletcher ended up tagging in. He ended up grabbing Trent Beretta's foot. Beretta ended up kicking Fletcher away. So, at the end of the match, we had Trent Beretta. He ended up going for a roll-up. And Kyle Fletcher ended up kicking out. Trent Beretta ended up hitting the strong zero on Fletcher. And he got the pin. And there you go. Trent Beretta and FTR ended up winning the match. To which, my opinion, I thought that Will Osprey, Aussie Open, and Kyle Fletcher were going to win the match. Considering, they made their debut on Dynamite on Wednesday, and they ended up taking out, FTR and Trent Beretta. So I thought that Will Osprey and co would win it tonight. But overall, good entertaining match from Trent Beretta, FTR, and Will Osprey, Aussie Open, and Kyle Fletcher, United Empire. But overall, Rampage, good show tonight. But anyways, that's it for the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Bye. Oh, and be sure to check out my previous video, my DVD, Blu-ray, 4K update if you guys haven't seen it.